afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Bayou Bets. I'm Zach Ewing. That's Jim Derry. It is Monday, February 27th. Hope everyone is enjoying their last couple days of February before we head into March. That's a teaser because March is a big month for a certain sport, and so we'll be a couple of sports actually. So we'll be talking about that. As always, we are brought to you by Caesars Sportsbook. We'd like to remind everyone, new Caesars users can get a 3-poster LSU set for free just by going to lsuposter.com, registering for Caesars Sportsbook, and making a minimum of a $10 bet. And you get to pick out your posters. We send them to your house. It's fantastic. Speaking of fantastic, that's right. Jim Derry, how are you today?
I'm fantastic. That's the word of the day. Fantastic. No, it's,
did I say it more than once? Did I?
I don't know. But
overemphasize fantastic. Sally's fantastic. How are you, Sally?
Well, I'm glad to see Sally's here. It's weird because I only worked 2 days last week, and I had my vacation and Mardi Gras mode, and so trying to get back to reality is not always easy. It is easier though that the kids went back to school. That is a reason to celebrate. Thank you, Lord, baby Jesus. So that's my rant of the
a week is too damn long for Mardi Gras. They just had 3 weeks off for Christmas.
No. Well, it's too long because they're home, but it's not. Mardi Gras is never long enough for me.
No. I'm saying from school. Jerry's here. That is undoubtedly fantastic. Jerry, I had a good weekend. I don't betting wise, so.
Didn't really do anything.
Yeah, I hit a fantasy golf lineup. I lost a few college basketball bets. I won a little bit of money, but it's okay. Speaking of how things went, we'll start Bayou Bets as we do with our headlines. Jameis Winston was on the broadcast at the HBCU Legacy Bowl, and they asked him about free agency, and he said, "Not so fast, my friend."
Yep.
He said, "I'm not a free agent yet. I'm still under contract." Kind of reminded people of that.
Bring on the hate comments. Bring on the hate comments.
The way he said it kind of made it sound like he expected the Saints to release him, but we'll talk about this more in a minute, Jim. But I think the door is at least open a crack there.
It's ajar, slightly ajar.
Speaking of slightly ajar, the Pelicans' playoff hopes. The door is closing.
It's slightly ajar.
There's still 21 games left. I don't want to make it seem like it's must-win tonight. They play Orlando. But they better start winning. They better start winning some games. LSU women, number 2 seed in the SEC tournament, up to number 4 in the net rankings. So if they take care of business in the SEC tournament, they could get a number 1 seed in the Big Dance. We'll talk about that. And LSU baseball loses its first game. They lost to Iowa on Saturday, but they did win that tournament, the Round Rock Classic. They won their other 2 games. They won the tiebreaker on run differential. So it's college baseball. You're not going to go 56-0.
Probably not. Not in this day and age. I mean, it's not likely.
I think it's almost impossible. Tennessee was number 1 wire to wire last year, and I think finished 52-4. So you're going to lose some games.
I wonder what people think about our new little backdrop. We're trying to be fancy, and
Yeah, let us know what you think.
Us old challenged guys trying to figure out ways to make the broadcast look fancy. Jerry, I hope you're right.
I'm still in my 30s.
You're old too. You're old at heart. You're older at heart than I am. We're going to talk about Jameis in just a minute, but it's an interesting scenario, and it's just funny. I mean, it's kind of like the same boat as last year, right? I mean, last year they were going after Deshaun Watson and didn't get him, and they were kind of stuck bringing Jameis back, and we know how that worked out. So if they don't get Derek Carr, does that mean are they leaving Jameis hanging on a ledge? It's not really fair to Jameis, is it?
No, it's not, and I think they have to make that decision sooner rather than later. If Derek Carr strings them along for another month, and we're getting into April, you're going to have to make a decision on. In fact, I think you have to before that, just because of the league calendar. If you want to avoid a Jameis cap hit, you've got to release him. I want to say by March 15th. So you have to make that decision.
Well, not only that, you want to know because you want to know what your future is going to be going into the draft, and I think it's the same thing as. How long are the Saints going to let Derek Carr leave him hanging on a string because they're going to have to make their plans for the draft as well. So it's an interesting scenario. And, I had just kind of an anecdote. I had my best friend was in the Pete Fountain Marching Club, and at the end of it, he ran into Jameis in the French Quarter, just hanging out for Mardi Gras, which is, if you like Jameis, it's a good sign that he's wanting to hang around. But went up to him and said, "Man, I hope you're back. You never got a real shot last year. Really hope you're back next year." And he said, "So do I. I want to be back." So I don't think there's any reason for him to say that if he really didn't want to be back. So I mean,
yeah, that's
I think
to me that's telling.
To come back. Yeah, he wants
well,
to come back.
First of all, if you're Jameis, obviously you want the chance to start somewhere. But if your other choices are going back to Tampa Bay or going to Carolina or
oh my God, Mark, no. Sorry.
I think the Saints are about as good as it would get for Jameis as far as putting some talent around him and giving him a chance to win, unless the Jets are suddenly interested in Jameis Winston, which I don't see happening.
Realistically, I mean, you can have the haters all like Mark Satanovich. I mean, if you're
Carson
the Satanovich family, your family has the best restaurant on the planet. If that's your family, 9 years in the NFL, but he had his chance at Tampa. He was young. Now he's supposed to have another chance here. He never got a chance here, in my opinion. And Carson Wentz is absolutely 100% not the answer.
I'd rather keep Andy Dalton.
So would I. And anyone that's listened to me over the past 6 months knows what I feel about Andy Dalton, and I would much rather Andy Dalton than Carson Wentz.
I will say this: the discussion around Derek Carr is a little bit like, yeah, hey, he hasn't performed well. He hasn't won a playoff game, but look at the arm talent. Look at some of the throws he makes. He's been on bad teams with bad defenses, so it hasn't all been his fault. He could really, crack the code and figure this out. Isn't that sort of what we think about Jameis too? Like, the only difference is Jameis hasn't been healthy for 2 years, and that's why I put him below Carr, and a pretty good step below Carr for me. But if you can't go get Derek Carr, if you think Derek Carr is going to go choose the Jets or the Panthers, then yeah, Jameis, to me, unless Lamar Jackson suddenly becomes available, which it sounds like that's more and more of a possibility, and you can go get him, then Jameis Winston is pretty close to the top of the list for me.
He is second on my list, honestly. And you talk about his 2.5 interceptions per game. He was in Tampa with an awful coaching staff. Okay, first off, before his LASIK surgery, he came to New Orleans under Sean Payton. Again, there's no more Sean Payton, so that's part of it, which is a problem. But he had 14 touchdowns and 3 interceptions on a small sample size. So, I mean, he never got a real chance here, except for the beginning, those first 6-7 games before he got hurt in 2021. And last year, he plays 3 games. He has a poor game against Tampa. He really only had a poor fourth quarter, but he got put into that situation by the running game that couldn't do anything. Mark Ingram fumbles on the 11-yard line to get things started.
Yeah.
They take the lead.
I mean, he wasn't playing well before that.
I don't disagree with you, Zach. I don't disagree with you, but I thought he led them out of the abyss in the Atlanta game. Now he didn't play well the first 3 quarters, but came back strong, played the fourth quarter, led him to victory. So anyway, you can talk about whatever you want. Jameis Winston is a massive leap over Andy Dalton. I don't care what anyone says. We're not going to argue this again. Hopefully we won't have to. It doesn't make a difference regardless. Yeah. But like you said, Zach, I think Derek Carr is the number one priority. I don't think there's anyone that's in the know that's dismissing this. They're going after Derek Carr. That's what they want. There's no question, besides the people who should be feeding the pigeons on Sunday, there is no debate on whether Derek Carr would be a massive upgrade at quarterback for this team, period.
Jameis Winston is a nice insurance blanket to have that he's under contract.
Agreed. And he's cheap. $14 million is cheap for a quarterback.
Jamie asks, is Carr coming to the Saints? I mean, that's sort of the question of the hour, and we're going to ask you guys what you think. And this is not what you think will happen. It's what you think the Saints should do. And we have our poll up on bet.NOLA.com right now. Use a draft pick. Always an option. Now, at number 29, if you want to get a surefire starter, you're probably looking at trading up and giving up significant draft capital to do that. Or you're maybe getting a guy who's not quite ready to go at number 29. Choice number 2, do whatever it takes. Swing big, sign Derek Carr, give him $40 million a year if that's what it takes. Backload the contract so you can stay under the cap. Do what you have to do. Choice number 3 would be bring in another veteran, whether that's via free agency, Jimmy Garoppolo, whether you could swing a trade from Mac Jones. I think Lamar Jackson probably still pretty unlikely at this point. Aaron Rodgers unlikely at this point, but it could be. Or do you stand pat and you go with Jameis Winston or Andy Dalton and say, let's run this back and see if a healthy Jameis makes a difference for us. So we want you guys to vote. Go to bet.NOLA.com and vote.
It's very early. We just put the poll up a couple hours ago. Right now, it's 37.8% leading the way is do whatever it takes to draft Derek Carr. 26.7% trade up or draft one with the existing pick. 21.5% sign another free agent. Talking about Jimmy G or Jacoby Brissett. Nobody's talking about Jacoby Brissett. I think he'd be a good option too if you look at his stats. And Cleveland was much better with Jacoby Brissett in at quarterback than they were with Deshaun Watson, interestingly enough. And then 14.1%. I don't think anyone really wants to hang on to Jameis Winston and or Andy Dalton. We're just talking about that as a possibility. Is $40 million for Carr. That is not a ridiculously high price for a quarterback these days. And in fact, by the time that contract would run out, I guarantee you that would be in the bottom half among starting quarterbacks. $40 million is
and
not.
Carr is a top half, or at least right now, he's a top half starting
100%.
quarterback.
Not even close.
So I know it sounds like a lot, and if you think of the salary cap from 5 years ago, that's too much. But the salary cap where it is now and what quarterbacks are going for, if you want a surefire starter who has a chance to make a Pro Bowl and lead your team to the playoffs, that's what you're paying. I mean, Kirk Cousins makes over 30, and that contract was signed 4 years ago. So,
Anna, it's not that $40 million. I know it sounds like a lot of money because you and I don't have $40 million in the bank, but $40 million is not a lot of money for a top 10 quarterback. In my opinion, Derek Carr is at the bottom of the top 10.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens. And the other thing is it may not take that much. It may be, okay, Derek will pay you 35 in the first 2 years, and then it'll be 38 for the next 2 years, and then you'll make 40 in the fifth year. And so there's different ways you can do that.
That's right. Signing bonuses to where his base contract might be 20-something if you give him the right base contract and help you with the salary cap, if that's what he chooses to do, if he wants to come here. But there's no guarantee. Look, he's exploring his options. We said that before. If they didn't make the trade, which he didn't want to do, that it was going to be harder to get him here. And it is going to be harder to get him here now. I think the Saints are probably either the favorites or up there with the favorites. I think we're waiting to see what Aaron Rodgers does, right? I think the Jets, obviously, their number one is Aaron Rodgers. And if Aaron Rodgers goes to Vegas like some people think, or Vegas, whatever, then if he doesn't go to the Jets are going to make Derek Carr their number one priority as well as the Saints, I promise you.
Yeah, I think the longer this goes, and it may go on for a while, but the longer it goes, the more that. Yeah. So we'll see. 2 weeks from Wednesday is the league year start, the start of free agency, and news will start to trickle out probably 2 weeks from today. So,
Jerry, 100%. 100% on that comment. I hated the way that they treated Jameis Winston as well last year. He never got a real shot. You can hate him all you want, but if anyone denies that he didn't get a fair shot, you're only kidding yourself, lying to yourself. You can hate for whatever reason you want to hate. That's up to you. But he never got a real shot, period.
I just wish they had been more forthright about the injury. Because I still don't think, even though he could have played, that he was 100% healthy. And I know he went and talked to Mike Triplett and said, well, I'm healthy, I can play. Okay, being able to play and being able to play at 100% are two different things. So there may have been a lack of transparency on both the Saints' part and on Jameis' part. And maybe that was intentional, maybe it wasn't. I will say I actually saw him at a practice the last week of the season. He seemed to be in good spirits. Now, Jameis is kind of a happy guy. I mean, he's not. He's always got a smile on his face. I mean, so maybe that's just how he is. But it did not look like a guy who was checked out. I'll put it to you like that. So, all right, moving on. Yeah, it'll be interesting, and we will keep talking about it as we go into March, which is NFL free agency month. Topic number 2 for today is the Pelicans and peril. They play the Magic tonight. They're 4-point favorites, as you see on the bottom of the screen. Again, you can't call it a must-win when they're still in the play-in picture and they got 21 games left. But boy, you got to start racking together some wins.
I think it's a must-win. I mean, if you're not going to win now against the Magic at home as a 4-point favorite, look, I said this before. I mean, my son got mad at me. He didn't talk to me for like a week because I said that I didn't think Zion was coming back this year in the regular season. He may come back in the playoffs. I don't think he's coming back in the regular season. I think if they make it to the playoffs and he can go, then he's going to go. But you talk about re-injuring the hamstring. So you have to get the mindset that you had last year that he's not coming back this year. It is what it is. Just get yourself together. And it really, for the first time, I saw Willie Green kind of at a loss last night. I saw an interview that he had, I don't know whether it was after the loss from Saturday or when it was, but, I found it interesting that he talked about that the team just kind of gave up, and it was almost as if he didn't have an answer. We got to fix that. It was just, I did not like his reaction. That was the first time in the Willie Green era I did not like his reaction at all. And if he doesn't have an answer, then, I've been counting on him to find a way to get it fixed. But if he can't fix it, then no one's going to be able to fix it.
Yeah, and I mean, really, it comes down to, and you say you don't think Zion's going to play till the playoffs. I think if that's the case, there will be no playoffs. Maybe there will a play-in tournament. Maybe you're the 10 seed, and you got to go win 2 road games.
They did it without him last year.
I don't know.
Same guys.
They did, but something feels different, and the league figures you out after a certain point. I mean, you need to have it to win at a high level in the NBA. You need to have high-level talent, and right now the Saints, the Pelicans don't really have that.
I don't agree with you.
Well, they do, but it's not on the court, right?
No, I agree.
They're 7-4.
They have the talent. They're just not. They're one of these teams that, for some reason, they get into these funks, and they get on long winning streaks. They get on long losing streaks, and they're an up and down kind of team. You don't want to catch them when they're playing their best, but at some point, if they don't turn it around the next few games, that's why tonight I think is a must win, because I think tonight you need to start a streak. We talked about that rough schedule, and they got through it, and they started playing a little bit better, and then they stunk to high hell in the little mini 2-game road streak. They either turn it around now at home or they don't turn it around. That's where we're at right now.
They have played 10 games is all with both Zion and BI in the starting lineup. 10 games.
Yeah, I know.
And they are 6-4 in those games. So not an appreciable difference. Those were all real early in the season. I think if you could get them back and get them both playing starters minutes, and that may go up. But listen, if they played 600 ball, if they went 6-4 in each, well, they got 21 games left, so let's call it 13-8. That would be enough. I think that gets them at least into the high end of the play-in, if not into that 6 seed. So, but they got to get them back
to win the games like tonight.
Yeah, no, and Jerry's right. Like, if you look at their schedule, it gets pretty tough. I mean, they're on a 3-game road trip: Portland, Golden State, Sacramento. All 3 of those teams are playing exceptionally well right now. Golden State's like 24-7 at home and 7-23 on the road or something. Like, if you play them at home, they're a different team. Sacramento's playing really well. Then they come back home. They're playing Sacramento. Yeah, they probably did, but Sacramento's playing very well right now. Then you come back home: Dallas, Oklahoma City, Portland, Lakers. Those teams are playing well right now. I mean, so if you don't turn it around, those next, let's say, 8 games, if you can't go at least 4-4 in those games, this is going to get ugly.
Seems like we've been saying that for a while. Just win. I mean, I don't want to sound like Al Davis. Just win a damn ball game. I mean, start with one. Start with one. I mean, you stop looking. We need to stop looking ahead at the schedule. Just win the game you got in front of you, and then figure it out after that. And this is the kind of team, to me, if they go on a 3-game winning streak and get some confidence, I don't think it matters who they play. They can beat anybody if they get that 3-game winning streak.
They are good enough to get hot. And again, we'll see what Zion. I think Zion. I think it's this week he's supposed to be evaluated again and see. Is he going to start ramping up activities? If he does 5-on-5 for a week, is that enough to then get him back out there?
Blah blah blah.
But that would be key. Yeah.
If I eat spaghetti for dinner tomorrow, I might be super strong. Who knows? Get out of here. Just play ball, whatever. Yeah, whatever. I mean, that's kind of where we are. Whatever. I mean, maybe just get some spinach from Popeye. I don't know. Something.
Strength has never been the problem for Zion, but he needs to avoid the pop in that hamstring is what he needs.
Maybe he needs to avoid Popeyes and not Popeye spinach.
Yeah. All right. Our third topic today: SEC women's basketball tournament. It starts. Actually, I think it's Wednesday. I put Tuesday. I think the first games are Wednesday.
I think you're right.
In South Carolina.
LSU doesn't play Wednesday.
Yeah, LSU doesn't play till Friday. You see the top 4 seeds there at the bottom. If seeds hold up You get LSU Tennessee in the semifinals. That'd be a great matchup. LSU took care of business. They finished the regular season 27-1 with just the lopsided loss at South Carolina. They did have some other close games, able to survive them. Indiana's loss, great game Sunday against Iowa. That dropped Indiana below LSU in the net ranking. So the question is, Jim, does that drop them below LSU for the NCAA tournament bracket? And if LSU, let's say they get to the SEC tournament final and then lose again to South Carolina, which I think most people would agree is the most likely outcome, does that make LSU a number 1 seed in the big dance?
Am I voting? Am I the one that gets to the seeding?
I'm not saying what would you do. I'm saying what will the committee do?
I have no idea because I don't understand why they weren't a 1 seed already. It shouldn't have depended on what Indiana does. I mean, LSU is clearly one of the top 4 teams in the country. You go 27-1, your only losses to the best team on the planet. I mean, it's ridiculous you're not a 1 seed. I mean, I get they haven't played great, and they had some scares in there. But I mean, since when are we grading style points? You're 27-1 for God's sake. You only lost to South Carolina. You go through the SEC tournament and then you lose to South Carolina again. That's not a knock. It shouldn't even affect your power rating whatsoever. So yes, they should be a 1 seed. I have no idea what this committee wants to do. I hate NCAA committees as it is. I don't like the way they pick football. I don't like the way they pick basketball. I'd rather them use a damn computer, to be honest.
We got rants coming later, but you got started a little early.
I mean, it sucks that you're sitting here waiting on a damn 8 people who the hell knows what they think. You could get 8 people in, but you picked another 8. If you had 8 in one room and 8 in another room, you'd come out with completely different seeds. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Let's come out with a better way to do this, but it's never going to happen.
LSU will open play Friday. They face the winner of Georgia and Auburn. And I think they play the first game of the night session, so it'll be like 5:30 our time on Friday. Auburn and Georgia, both teams on the bubble, so it could be interesting. And then if seeds hold, it would be Tennessee and then South Carolina. What do they need to do, or is it even possible for LSU to beat South Carolina in the SEC tournament final?
I know, but Anna doesn't agree with me about Derek Carr, but she agrees with me on this. Because it's common sense, Anna. It's common sense. Let's come out with a way that makes sense. Because what they do doesn't make sense. I don't know. We'll see. Look, LSU's not going to beat South Carolina. No one is. No one's beating South Carolina. It doesn't make a difference anyway. But it would be nice to have them away from South Carolina to go as far as they possibly can go. Because I think LSU can beat anyone else. So get on the other side of the bracket from South Carolina. At least make it to the Final Four. Be a nice big step, and I think this LSU women's program can take another big step next year as well.
LSU is 7-1 to win the national title at Caesars Sportsbook.
Don't waste your money.
South Carolina is -160, so
yes,
a heavy odds-on favorite, even with 67
still
other teams
value
in that tournament. But clearly, the first weekend they have basically a 0 chance of losing.
If they played this tournament in hyperspace 100 times, South Carolina would win 80 times, in my opinion. So
that's a little high.
Minus 160 is a value. That's just my opinion.
That's a little high. A couple other comments before we get on to our last topic. Jim, we got to agree here. Joseph says, Wentz got released. Knowing this administration, he's probably in the mix now. If Carson Wentz is the Saints starter week 1, Jim and I will both paint our faces. Can we agree to that?
You're volunteering to paint my face?
I didn't say I would do it, but your daughter wants to anyway, so...
So you're going to paint your face if Carson Wentz.
We will both paint our faces if Carson Wentz is the
enough.
starter week 1.
He's not going to be the starter because I have too much faith. I have too much faith in this organization. I know they haven't been they've made some mistakes here and there with Sean Payton gone. And I've disagreed with some things, but I have enough faith in this organization for them not to bring in Carson Wentz. Yes.
Face paint challenge. You can choose the colors of one of Carson Wentz's previous teams. So you got the Commanders, the Colts, and the Eagles. You get to choose the colors of the previous Carson Wentz team that you'll paint your face if he is the Saints starter week 1.
Yikes.
That's what we're going to do.
It's not going to be Eagles.
Last topic of the day, MLB rule changes. As we start spring training, Major League Baseball has new rule changes. The big one is the pitch clock. Pitchers have 30 seconds to throw a pitch to start their windup for their next pitch once the previous pitch is thrown. Batters have 20 seconds to be in the box and ready. And so on both sides, you've got to basically get in the box, get on the rubber, let's go. And what we saw in the minor leagues last year with this rule, and what we see in spring training thus far, is game times at like 2:30, 2:35, 2:40. They're like 20 to 30 minutes shorter than they were on average last year. So that's a welcome change in my book. The other ones, though, are interesting, Jim. Bigger bases could mean more, and also I didn't put this up there, but you're limited on how many pickoff throws you can make. If you can make 2 pickoff throws. If you make a third pickoff throw, it's a balk. So after 2, the runner can go as soon as he knows you're going to home plate. So we could see more stolen bases, and then limits on defensive shifts. I'm thinking of the prop betting market here. A guy like Corey Seager, who gets shifted every single time he goes up, could his batting average go way up?
Sure. Here's my question, though. Do we have the times of how long spring training games lasted last year? Because you're comparing apples to oranges. I don't care that you're comparing these spring training games to regular season games. They don't play with the same TV schedule and the commercial schedule. So it's TV that makes games longer. I mean, sure, this might change it a little bit, but I want to see, and I haven't looked, so I don't know. Maybe it's out there. But can you tell me how long the average spring training game was last year?
I actually can. 2022 average spring training game, 3 hours on the dot. 2022
okay, so it's 21 minutes.
2022 regular season average was 3 hours and 7 minutes. So you're right, it was 7 minutes longer on average. 239 is the average for the spring training, and we've only been going for 4 days.
Sample size.
Yeah, we've only been going for 4 days, so we'll see.
All right, look. As far as the rules changes go, I used to be a staunch traditionalist. I hate the DH, still hate the DH. I think pitchers should have to hit. Whatever. I'm to the point now where baseball is, they keep trying to kill themselves. They're doing everything they can to commit suicide. So sure, try whatever you want now. I don't even care anymore. I mean, it really doesn't make a difference to me. I mean, bigger bases, give me a break. I mean, I never liked the shift anyway, so I'm glad that they put limits on the shift. I think it was ridiculous that you could do that. I mean, I knew it was within the rules. Pitch clock, sure, we'll see what happens. I'm under the thing of I want to see how this affects the game because I love baseball. It's always been my favorite sport, but they're starting to lose me. So I'll see. Maybe it'll make me come back. I got to be honest. I watched less baseball last year than I probably watched since I was a teenager. I just couldn't get into it at all. They're ruining the game. So maybe this will make it better. I don't know.
The ghost runner in extra innings.
Oh, that's awful.
Is an abomination.
That's not baseball at all.
Yeah, get out of here with that. And they made it permanent. I hate that. I hate that more than I like or dislike any of these rule changes. I will say, though, this time last year, we were wondering if there'd even be a season. If you remember the lockout and the discussions and stuff. So we're moving in the right direction as far as that goes. At least we know that they're going to start in about a little more than a month.
Maybe that's why I couldn't get into it. I don't know. But I couldn't even watch my Cubs last year. Not just because they stunk. I just couldn't get into baseball last year. Even my fantasy baseball teams, I'd look and see how they did at the end of the day, and I'd make my changes, but that's about it. So
the Mariners made the playoffs for the first time in forever, so I was into it last year. So
the Astros were good, so that's another reason why I didn't want to watch either.
I know there's a lot of Astros fans out there, but by the way, AT&T Sportsnet is like filing for bankruptcy, and they're the ones who carried the Astros games in Houston.
Well,
now you couldn't get them here anyway.
That's another thing. The way that baseball does their stupid TV rules, you can't watch the Rangers or Astros basically on the MLB ticket. And if your team's playing the Astros or the Rangers, you can't watch them. So even if you're an Astros fan, you can't even watch the damn Astros here. I mean, we live 6 hours from Houston. I mean, it's insane. We live 9 hours from Dallas. It's insane, these stupid rules. I mean, and it's the same as if you go to if you live in Jackson, Mississippi, you can't watch the Braves. I mean, it's insane because they're not on your local, if they're not on your local cable or whatever you subscribe to, if you're on YouTube TV, which most people are cutting cords these days. I mean, they're archaic, insane, stupid TV blackout restrictions are also helping kill the sport. How about you fix that first and then worry about making bases bigger?
Yeah, I know. The bigger bases. They say it's in the name of safety. I could see it at first base, maybe. Guy doesn't get stepped on or
Give me a
whatever, or
break.
roll his ankle. But that's the one that I
I
think
thought it
we'll
was because
probably see the
people
least
like me
change.
could see the bases better.
Well, maybe.
You
You
know,
also must
old
drive
people
like an
can't see
old
the base.
grandfather if it's taking you
Oh,
9 hours
I
to get
absolutely
from.
do not.
How is it taking you 9 hours to get to Dallas? It's like 7.
I got kids.
Well, I mean, okay, if you're counting in like potty breaks, then
Well, I mean, we went to Great Wolf Lodge a few years ago, and it took 9 hours to get there. So I'm just saying.
that's like an hour north of Dallas, isn't it? I don't know. We go to the one.
No,
at
it's in
George.
between Fort Worth and Dallas, I believe.
Okay. All right. Okay, it's time. It's the time of the show where we sound off, and we've got some topics for you today. And I'm going to start, and I mentioned this at the top of the show. It's almost March, and college basketball, everybody watches it in March, at least for one weekend. If you weren't watching college basketball this past Saturday, you just completely missed out. There were so many insanely fun games. Arizona State goes to arch rival Arizona on the road. Arizona's number 4 in the country and hits a 65-footer to beat them at the buzzer. Florida State, who's having a terrible season, goes to their arch rival Miami and comes back from 25 down, only to give up what looked like the game-winning shot with 5 seconds left to come down on the other end, and they score their own game-winning shot. There was the Sunday women's game between Indiana and Iowa also had a buzzer beater for Iowa. Like, there are so many insanely fun games in college basketball. I don't really understand why people have just given up on it until Selection Sunday, and they say, oh, okay, I'm going to pick the team based on, oh, Notre Dame used to be good when Digger Phelps was the coach there, I'll pick them. And it's like, I get that your weekends in January are for the NFL playoffs. Like, I understand that. But once the Super Bowl ends, and you got a chance to watch something on TV, all the games are on TV. That's not the case with the NBA. NBA regular season games are almost all meaningless. Why wouldn't you flip on a North Carolina-Virginia game on Saturday and have some fun? These games are what sports are all about. The student section's going crazy. There's ups and downs and twists and turns. Every game has meaning for teams on the bubble or trying to get conference tournament seeding. College basketball is a hell of a lot of fun. And I think as a general sports base, we seem to have forgotten that.
I can only tell you from my own personal perspective, but as you know, during football season, you and I probably, that's probably 70% of our work comes during football season. And so, you go from working 12 hours a day or 14 hours a day or whatever it is, we're working you and I are both working 6 days a week, some kind of way. I'm probably not supposed to say that out loud. Sorry, HR department, but I mean, let's be realistic. So when football season's over, I need to decompress. And honestly, I haven't made hardly any bets since the Super Bowl. I have reunited myself with my family. And Saturday, as you use for an example, all these great games out there, I spent the entire day with my family. We had late lunch. We went and drove around. They went to the trampoline bouncy place. We went and saw a movie. By the way, I hadn't been to a movie theater in 2 years. I had no idea they had like real recliners. Like,
oh yeah,
it's
you
phenomenal.
pay for it though, man. You pay like
oh no kidding. It's $80.
How much was it? Yeah, it's like $80.
It was $80 for the family of 4, and one of my I got a 7-year-old and an 11-year-old, and $80 for the tickets to the movie, for 3 things of candy and 2 drinks. $80. But anyway, I digress. But for me, that's why I did put the LSU game on basketball game on before we left the house, and I paused it on YouTube TV. And when we got home and they went to sleep, I hit unpause and I watched the rest of it. And then I realized why I don't watch LSU basketball anymore.
I will say you hit on something there. People tend to not watch if their team's no good.
Yeah,
and the last few years, LSU's been very good. This year, they're not good at all. And so I think LSU fans, do you really care who wins Texas A&M against Mississippi State? Oh, it's a big game in the SEC standings, but do I really care that much if LSU's not involved?
Well,
so
another thing I'm probably not supposed to say with my employer watching is that I got to be honest. I've kind of decompressed from sports. I will get back into it, I promise. But I had to get away for a little bit. I mean, not just vacation. I know it was tough, man. Your brain is just clogged. The brain needs to be unclogged. And now I'm back. I'm ready to go. For me, it's golf season now. I'm getting ready dive head first into golf and get you some winners on that.
All right.
So,
Yeah, golf.
that's right.
Hey, Arnold Palmer Invitational this week, Players Championship next week.
Players Championship, really looking forward to Players Championship, which is...
They're both going to be ridiculous fields. 46 of the top 50 players in the world or something like that. Okay, but you're decompressing from sports, so it is only fitting that today, for a rare occasion, your sound off will not be exactly about sports.
It is. It's a very rare thing. I noticed this morning, I never even knew this, but the company that used to own the Times-Picayune before John George thankfully, graciously bought the Times-Picayune and kept it alive, decided to kill 3 of their newspapers this morning. They published for the last time. The papers in Birmingham, Huntsville, and Mobile all published for the final time this morning. And it's a sad day. I mean, I know a lot of people out there don't read the newspaper anymore, but I'm 32 years in this business, which Zach was in first grade or something like that when I started this thing in 1990. It's the only thing I've known.
Kindergarten.
Okay,
yep.
Well, I grew up in bringing the news. My dad would get mad at me because I'd take the sports section out of the newspaper and bring it to school, and then he'd yell at me when I got home, and I'd do it again the next day. But I mean, and I realized that we don't live in the same world that we lived in when I was going to high school. But the death of the newspaper in some places, to me, is premature. There are still many, many people who want to read the newspaper. And thank God for John George's and my company here, The Advocate and the Times-Picayune, for continuing to print a paper every day. I am so grateful and thankful. And when I see these things, and if John George's hadn't bought the company, not only could it have been me, it would have been me. And as someone that's been, cut and brought back and cut and brought back, I feel like Jameis Winston, kind of. Maybe that's why I appreciate it. But to still be able to do this every day and to do it on the level that we are able to do it. And, Zach and I, you and I were talking off the air about just that we are able to do this now about sports and it's not only that we have a newspaper, but that we have a company that's innovative and allowing us to do different things and things, these shows. I mean, just things that you can't do at other places, and my podcast and all those sorts of things. So again, I'm not blowing smoke. I promise you. Don't get me wrong. I am thankful every day that at my age that I still have a job in this business, and that I'm allowed to do these things, but it's not blowing smoke. I'm truly appreciative of the people of the Advocate and the Times-Picayune and John and Judy and Peter and Dan and all the people that were part of this when I came over to the Advocate 4 years ago. I am super grateful, and I hope that my brothers and sisters across the country don't have to, they're still going to have an AL.com. I don't even know if I'm supposed to say it on the air, but it's not the same. You won't be printing it. Your name won't be in print anymore. It'll only be on a computer screen or a phone. And it's sad. It's a sad day.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, yes, there will still be a website, but I think this underscores, it's very well said, Jim. And I think it underscores the importance of local news. And I know a lot of people out there are going to roll their eyes and say, oh, the fake news this and the liberal news media that. But listen, when you're talking about local news and it's done right, like we do it right here, it improves the community. There is zero question about it. You don't have to agree
100%.
with every last thing that we write. You don't have to agree with every last thing that our columnists write, certainly. But you have to say that when there's someone reporting the facts and digging into the stories that affect a community, it makes the community better. And so I hope we don't lose sight of that, and it's very well said.
And Zach, and you can completely disagree with our opinions on things, but a lot of times that's why people keep coming back. I'm convinced that, on the podcast sometimes when I come out with, after the Saints lose, for some reason the attitude does better on the Monday after the show. They want to hear what kind of idiocy I'm going to spew on that particular morning. They're not going to agree with me probably, but they want to hear so they can yell at me through their phones or maybe yell at what I write. So
people like the bellyache, right? Yeah. By the way, you compared yourself to Jameis Winston. Have you ever eaten a W?
Right now, baby.
Get that W out. Yeah.
Right now.
Joseph asked, what about Lamar? Is there any chance? I mean, I wouldn't have said so.
Zippo.
it sounds like the Ravens are more likely to trade for him. I just can't imagine the Saints being able to put together the winning package there.
They can't afford Lamar Jackson. I mean, it's going to be tough to afford Derek Carr, much less Lamar Jackson. So no.
Yeah, he's looking for Deshaun Watson's deal plus. So
I also think he's going back to Baltimore.
Yeah, I think he will. I will say this: if he does somehow become a free agent, if they think that relationship is fractured beyond repair in Baltimore, I would keep an eye out for the Jets, and I would keep an eye out for the Houston Texans because they have as much cap room as you could possibly imagine, and they could break the bank. But yeah, I think the Jets. In fact, I think that would be good for the Saints' pursuit of Derek Carr because
100%.
Then you have Lamar Jackson and possibly Aaron Rodgers on the market, and Derek Carr all of a sudden has some competition. He doesn't get his choice of any situation, and so maybe he's.
And the Ravens probably go after Anthony Richardson in the draft, which is the closest thing to Lamar Jackson out there.
Yeah, because I don't, the way that offense is built, like
it's
Derek
built
Carr,
around Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, Derek Carr and Aaron Rodgers don't fit in that offense. You need somebody who's going to run, or else you're going to have to revamp your entire offense, which the Ravens don't need to do. They're competitive the way they are.
100%.
Yeah. All right, that'll do it for us, and we appreciate all y'all stopping by, leaving your comments. Join us at 4 o'clock on Thursday for the next edition of Bayou Bets. We will be here live. We'll talk some more LSU women's basketball and more Saints. Who knows? Maybe they'll have a quarterback by then. That seems a little early, but maybe.
Bring back the hate. Everybody who hates Jameis Winston, come on back Thursday.
Yeah, all right. And we'll keep on rolling. So 4 o'clock on Thursday, right here on the Bayou Bets YouTube channel. In the meantime, give us a like if you appreciate the show. Subscribe to the channel. And check us out on Instagram as well. We're trying to grow the channel over there. So until then, for Jim Derry, I'm Zach Ewing, and we will see you guys next time.